Joining us today is Dalton Risner. Dalton, it's a delight to have you, my friend.
It's an honor to be on here, Zach. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm pretty excited.
This is going to be a blast, brother. Let me tell you, as of this recording, we're heading into Super Bowl weekend, Chiefs, 49ers. I got to ask you up front, what's your prediction? But also, what's on the menu at the Risner household? Chicken wings, buffalo chicken dip? What you guys got to serve?
I love it. I love it. So a couple things. Being in the AFC West for 4 years, I can't cheer for the Kansas City Chiefs. My wife is also grew up a Chiefs fan, so her whole family, they were big Chiefs fans. They've kind of converted to Bronco and Viking fans, but they still got that Chiefs kingdom in them. So I gotta go with the 49ers as who I want to win.
Yes.
But if I had to stake a claim on someone, I'm doing it on Patrick Mahomes. The guy's just, he's an amazing football player. So I gotta give credit where it's due. Sunday, in the off season have to watch what I eat. So through the week,
That's right.
I'm eating more chicken and veggies than I'd like to. So I plan in my notes ahead for what I want to eat. And it was about 2 weeks ago, I saw a Domino's commercial. I'm going to order so many pizzas and breadsticks and lava cakes that I can. And Sunday's going to be an amazing day.
Dude, celebrate it. Super Bowl Sunday. It is like a holiday. I'm telling you that. I'm with you. I think I'm pulling for the 49ers, but if I were to put money on it, I would probably say the Chiefs as well. I'm going to have a playful myself, my friend, so let's eat it up. But Dalton, just to hit rewind for a second, to go back in time, look at your story, take it all the way back to small town USA, Wiggins, Colorado. I believe you grew up on a ranch, had 4 brothers. What was life like for the Risners?
Man, you did a great job. You called it a ranch, man. A lot of people call it a farm, and people from my hometown give me crap because they're like, dude, you didn't grow up on a farm, man. You grew up with some cows and some pigs. But, growing up in Wiggins, Colorado, I take a lot of pride in that. My parents, at an early age, they had 4 kids, I think, within 5 years. So, and they were young when they started to have us, so they didn't have a lot. So houses we lived in, I remember – shockingly, like some snakes coming in our house as a young kid and getting Christmas presents dropped off on our doorstep. Like we didn't always have a lot. And my dad was working multiple jobs and my mom was taking care of 4 boys under the age of 5 and doing daycare. And yeah, so it was an awesome town to be raised in, a very rural area. I was actually born in Springfield, Missouri, but all of us kind of settled down in Wiggins at a young age, and we did have a ranch. We had cattle, we had pigs, we had horses. It would probably take me a long time to describe, but very small town. Everyone shuts down on Friday night to come to the football game. My dad petitioned the whole town of Wiggins, Colorado, to become the head football coach. He started what he did was he started the Pee Wee football program. Took all of us boys through it. When we started to get to middle school, he became the middle school coach. When it came to high school, my dad wasn't a teacher. My dad was a computer software salesman. So usually in small towns in Colorado, you got to be able to be a teacher to be a head coach.
That's right.
So my dad went and petitioned. He went and got, I think there's 800 people in the town. He got like 700 signatures from people in the town signing off. They wanted him. So he went and took it to the school board, became head coach. He coached all 5 of us boys through high school as well. So I think those are a few of the highlights of being raised in Wiggins.
Dude, that's amazing. So I also saw that not only did you play football, you also played basketball and you did a little shot put. Did you have, obviously you played football, you're pursuing that still to this day, but was there a favorite there? Did you enjoy basketball and shot put just as much?
Man, basketball was my favorite sport, and
Wow.
it probably still is. There's no greater feeling than getting that ball in the paint and going to work with the up and under or whatever it may be, man. But I loved basketball. My wife would be remiss because she's a basketball player. She loves throwing out this stat, but I broke the record at Wiggins for, I think I had 23 rebounds and 23 points per game average my senior year.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I really loved basketball. Shot put and discus was fun. That's more of a very technical. You can't get angry and be better at it, even though people think, well, it's just a heavy ball or a heavy disc. But those are really technical deals. But
Yeah.
honestly, I loved all the sports that I played, but basketball was definitely my favorite.
Man, dude, I loved basketball too. I went on to play college baseball at Liberty University, so loved a little bit of football. I played quarterback. We'll get into that. So I have a deep appreciation for linemen like yourself, let me tell you that. But Wiggins High School is a 1A school with about 38 students per grade when you were attending. Became team captain in the 10th grade. Your nickname was Moose. How big were you in high school? Let me ask you that. 23 boards a game is crazy.
Dude, man, this is an awesome talk we're having. No one knows the stuff that you do. This is awesome, man. I haven't heard someone call me Moose since high school. That is hilarious. And no one has ever known that 38 people were in my graduating class. What was your question, though? I just was mesmerized the fact that you knew those.
No, absolutely. I was just wondering, how big were you in high school? Because 23 rebounds a game, dude, that's a huge stat.
Yeah, I was 6'4", 285 my senior year.
Wow. Wow.
Yep, yep. I'm 6'5", 310 now, so definitely grew a little bit after high school, but I was a big dude, man. And let's not forget,
Yeah.
we're 1A football. So
Right.
most of the teams we're playing, I mean, we got 20 guys on our team. These towns are 800 to 1,000 people in the whole town, probably no stoplight, maybe one restaurant, maybe a gas station. So the guys I'm going against, don't give me too much credit on the 23 boards because I mean, I was 6'4". Guys were probably 6 foot guarding me. So I'm not as good as I'm making myself seem.
Well, hey, man, what's crazy is that, like you're saying, in a small town at a small high school, ESPN comes in and rates you as the number 7 rated center in America. We're going to football here now for a second. And when you notice that, what's crazy to me is a lot of people would say, Dalton, that doesn't make any sense because in a small town, in a small school, that limits your visibility. How are you able to get seen so that way ESPN and other people, colleges, could come and recruit you at such a small school?
Well, let's just say it wasn't just me, man. I'm going into my 6th year in the NFL, and what I constantly say is so many people helped me get to where I'm at.
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ is by far the biggest influence on where I'm at today. But
Mm.
to have a father and a mother that look at their son, and I'm one of 5, and
Mm.
say, we want you guys to chase any dream that you want. We may not have the money to be able to pay for everything, to have you have everything that you want, but one thing that we will always do is support you on any endeavor you want. And I tell my wife to this day, I said, there wasn't one thing I couldn't pursue. I mean, I tried to be a bull rider like Lane Frost off 8 seconds.
Yeah.
I tried to ride dirt bikes. I tried to be a chef. I tried everything. I mean, I
Mm.
showed horses. I showed cows. I showed pigs. And I finally got to the area of football. And I remember my dad looking at me, Zach, in about 6th grade. And he said, what are you wanting to do? And I told him, I want to play Division I football and I want to play in the NFL. And that's a pretty lofty goal.
Yeah.
And some people might say, oh, your dad believed in you. Big whoop. Parents nowadays need to understand how important it is to actually believe in their child. Not just say you can do it, but when you tell them they can do it and they try to pursue that dream, do everything you can to make it happen. And that's what my parents did. Like, my dad's the type that if you tell him you want to do something and you tell him that you have a dream, you better be ready to put in the work. I mean, my 8th grade summer going into freshman year, I went to 15 camps. Probably 7 of those camps were with different families I didn't know because he has a job. He couldn't send me to every single camp.
Right.
Every single summer up to my junior year, I went to 15 to 20 camps. I mean, I'm talking a Midwest tour of trying to get my name out there. And there's one distinct memory on my 16th birthday. We're coming back from a Nebraska football game. I always wanted to play for Nebraska. I even painted my truck red. Like, I was a big Husker fan. My dad, first of all, they played some team in purple, and they beat that team in purple. I didn't know who that team in purple was. Come to find out, that was Kansas State University that they played. I didn't even know who those guys were. And on the way home, my dad looks at me, and he says, Dalton, I don't want you to share this with anybody, but me and your mom, we watch the way that you work. We watch the way that who you are and how you chase your dream, and you're going to make it. We believe in you. Like, if there's one of you that's going to accomplish the biggest of dreams, it's going to be you. And I remember that conversation, and it gets me choked up to this day because the power of someone believing in you is insurmountable, man. And just, I guess what I'll end with is the way that my parents believed in me, the opportunities that they gave me, that they helped me become the number 7 center in the world. I had to work hard, yes. I didn't work hard to be 6'4", 285. I was blessed with that. There's a reason I'm 6'4". There's a reason I grew to be 6'5", 310 pounds, and there's a reason I'm in the NFL and I'm pretty darn good at football. Whenever football really isn't even my favorite, I'd much rather be hitting jump shots from outside, bro. I'd much rather be doing that. But you know what? This is God's plan for me. So I think that I got that exposure from a lot of people helping and a lot of hard work and sacrifice.
What a powerful word to parents out there listening about the significance that your kids don't just need to be surrounded, your kids need to be supported. And being able to invest within them, like you said, that belief to let people know every kid deserves somebody that's crazy about them, that wants to push them and propel them and catapult them toward those dreams, toward those passions. And when you can just let somebody know, I'm proud of you, when you can let them know,
Yeah.
I believe in you, that then sparks that believability within ourselves as well. That's what every kid is desperately in need of, and I'm so grateful, Dalton, that your parents invested that within you. My dad, my mom did the same for me. I feel like I could have gone in any different career path, and they would have supported me, they would have pushed me, they would have challenged me, but they would have encouraged me and made me believe that I was capable of doing those things. Dalton, for you, a lot of people don't understand the complexity of being a lineman. Like I said, I was a quarterback, so I appreciate you. But some people just say, well, they're just big, strong dudes who run into each other. My thing is there's a lot of technicality. There's a lot of, I would say, strategy, footwork, film study. So much goes into the position. Give our listeners just a little understanding of the work ethic that you just mentioned and how that started at an early age and has developed over time.
Yeah, it's a great question. From an early age, very few kids want to be an offensive lineman. What do people want to be as a young kid, man? They want to throw the touchdown or catch it or intercept the ball or make a big sack. And offensive line, not even defensive line, offensive line is one of those positions where if you get noticed, it's usually for doing something bad. I mean, occasionally you make that great block, but offensive line is a very selfless position. It's a position that requires you to be someone that's going to put in the work all game and open up a hole for a running back to run 30 yards through it and not get touched, and for the announcer to talk all about the running back and how great he did. Right? That's the life of an offensive lineman. And what that reminds me of, man, is just the way that Jesus lived his life, is being selfless. We don't have to always get rewarded. So I'll say that the one thing I've taken pride in from probably sophomore or freshman year in high school to being in my sixth year in the NFL is the selfless position that the offensive line is in. I love that part of it. I love being able to go to work every day and know that all the work that I put in, it may not be noticed, but if my guys are scoring touchdowns and we win the game, that's the work that matters. But you're exactly right. The offensive line position is so complex. I always tell people, this is a little bit crazy. People don't have to believe me, but I say this game, offensive line, is 70% mental, 30% physical.
Yes.
Zach, I bench. I can't bench more than 285 pounds. I'm not scared to say it on air, bro. I am one of the weakest guys in the weight room. I've been around guys on combine day that put up 225, 45 different times.
Right.
They look like a phenom. Like, if I took my shirt off, you probably wouldn't be too impressed, my man. Like, I'm not a phenom, bro. But you know what? When I get out there on the field, you gotta be able to move. You gotta be able to be intellectual, analytical, mathematical, angles. Like, it is so much more than people can imagine in terms of what angle am I going to take to this linebacker on this outside zone or this inside zone or this power block where I'm going to pull around and I got to make sure I squeeze off the backside end before I head up to the safety. There's so many different angles, so many different trajectories. Then you got the snap count. Then if a defense audibles or if they change up their line of scrimmage or a linebacker walks up or a safety's pressed or a safety's rolled over the top and a corner is pressed over here on the side, we might get a corner cat. There's so many things you got to know. And it's no shade to the guys that are really, really strong or no shade to guys that look really, really big, because there's a lot of guys that are great football players, but it's sometimes those guys that look like physical phenoms that can lift the house that they struggle with the mental aspect when they get out there, whether it's remembering the snap count, whether it's remembering the play and where to go, or whenever they have to get out and move, they're a little bit too stiff to get to linebackers or to safeties. So I could really talk about it. You're talking my language here, but offensive line, I take a lot of pride in how much we have to know in terms of we're controlling that offense. We're pointing it out. We're making sure guys are blocked up, protecting the quarterback, giving him time, opening holes for the running back. And yeah, it's definitely a lot. I've learned to be very, very proud of it.
It's amazing what you guys put into it, and it's a whole lot more than what fans, watch on Sundays or Monday Night Football, right? It's a lot that goes into this process. Like you said, it's very complex, but also I appreciate what you mentioned about the position because it is kind of a thankless position. It's one that can often get overlooked. You have to have a lot of humility, but it's being able to recognize that it's a team sport, right? It's being able to everybody working toward the same goal, the same mission, and it's a common thing within the team, really. So for you, man, God, as he beautifully orchestrated, he continues to transition you. You develop into the football player and also the man that God has called you to. You go on to Kansas State University, the Wildcats. You play for one of the best coaches, right? Bill Snyder. And then all of a sudden what ends up happening is God orchestrates it again where I think you won almost every award you could win in college. I'll say that. I looked at your resume. I was like, I can't even list all of them. You win everything. You get drafted in the second round by the Denver Broncos. It's a huge deal. But along that time, God also gives you another unique role that I want to touch on here. Not just an offensive lineman, not just a Christ follower, but also now a husband. You meet your beautiful wife, Whitney. Talk to us a little bit about Whitney and what she has meant to you throughout this entire process and career.
Oh man, well that's my best friend. What God brought me and my wife and Whitney is far more important than any award you just mentioned in college. It's far more important than any speech that I've ever given for how well that I've played or whatever paycheck I've gotten in the NFL or whoever's watched me on TV. What God brings together, let no one separate, man. Ecclesiastes 4:12 was the verse at our wedding. And there's a lot of different versions of the verse for everyone out there listening, but it talks about, one cord or one strand being pretty strong. I was pretty strong by myself, Zach. I was pretty strong in my faith. I'm a pretty strong guy and good at football, whatever. But I mean, there's no shot for me in this world just by myself. And when I brought in Whitney, we were a lot stronger. And when we first met, I felt like I had my partner, as we were dating and as we were getting engaged, but we still couldn't fight the world, man. And we still couldn't fight the dark side. And we got that third strand. We got Jesus in there. And I love this analogy because, with God in the center and then me and Whitney intertwined around Jesus and each of us keeping Jesus first in our lives, we're unstoppable, bro. So I think the greatest evangelistic tool in this world is a marriage. And I think that if the devil can't stand one thing, it's two people in love with Jesus at the forefront of their marriage, and not only just for themselves, but carrying that out in their everyday lives. Not beating people over the head with the Bible, but the way that we want to carry ourselves as a marriage and the way we want people to look at us with our kindness and show Jesus' love to other people. There's no greater tool, bro. So I am so grateful for my wife. She is the biggest support system. My time in the NFL has been such a blessing. My time in college has been such a blessing. But there's been a lot of hard times, especially the last, 24 months, the last 2 years of my life. And without Whitney, it would have been a lot harder. She's my rock. She's my firm foundation. As it says in the Bible, she's my Ezer. And I think that God knew exactly what he was doing when he brought her into my life. She is a helper suitable for me more than I ever could have imagined. And a lot of people just get to see the good sides of me, all the positive things about Dalton, because that's kind of how this world works. But as you know, Zach, I am far from perfect, brother. And there's a lot that I could be better at that she just continues to push me with. And I could talk about her forever and how proud I am of her.
Amen, brother. I appreciate just the way you prioritize life, right? You put your faith first, you put your family, your wife, your family all in general right in there second, but then third, it's football, right? What you do. But what you do will never be as important as who you are and who you are becoming. Dalton, for you, as you kind of mentioned, the last 24 months really have been just a difficult road in certain areas of life. I know you were in Denver for 4 years, right? So you played. I think you really didn't even have many injuries. You started almost every single game. You're crushing it on the field. But then you hit this free agency period where over 6 months you were kind of in this waiting season. And what a lot of people don't understand is waiting can be a really difficult time in life when you're trying to be patient while you're still continuing to work, still continuing to be obedient. But then at the same time, you're waiting for God to put you exactly where he has called you to. Before you signed with Minnesota, right, there was probably a lot of frustration, a lot of uncertainty in that season. What was that like for you, and how did you stay rooted and anchored in your faith during those times?
Man, well, It was a really hard time. I remember finishing up my fourth year in Denver, and you never know what to expect. I'm a small town boy, like we talked about, from Wiggins,
Yeah.
Colorado. I mean, I've never been through the free agency process. I'm just learning as I go and put my best foot forward and trusting in God. And my fourth year in the NFL was hard, Zach. That's why I said 2 years. I mean, I was benched after being a 3-year starter. We got a brand new staff. I was benched going into my fourth year on like the very first day the staff showed up. I earned the job back. God rewired me in those times. I grew so much closer to God, and it was almost kind of like going through my fourth year. I was like, man, okay, the hard part's over. Like that storm is over with, and let's get ready to roll now. Let's go into free agency and start a new chapter and go to a new team and get that big contract I've always dreamed of. And meanwhile, my mom and dad, married of 30 years, were divorced in my fourth year. Mom has been struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, and tried to commit suicide my fourth year, and there was just a lot that went on, and it was just a very big storm. And me and my wife clung to Jesus through those times, and we held on for dear life because he was the only thing we felt like we could hold on to at times. Because football, they'll be there for you. Football will be there for you, and the next day it won't be. And we learned that really, really quick. And a lot of the people that follow the game of football will be there for you one day, and they won't be there the next. And so it was just really hard. The fourth year was tough. So we get done at Denver, and we kind of we had just gotten married. The stuff had went down with my parents, and we're trying to help mom and trying to figure out football, trying to take a breather from a hard year, and we're entering free agency. And we had a lot of hopes and expectations, and the free agency process starts, and it's not like we had planned. The calls weren't coming in like we thought, and we weren't getting picked up, and that big contract wasn't coming our way. And I remember so many times me and my wife being at church, and we have an amazing home church in Plum Creek with Pastor Doug Miller here in Castle Rock, Colorado. And some of his speeches, not some of them, every single one of them every Sunday just spoke deep down to our hearts. And me and Whitney talked about it the other day in our devotional, but the comfort in the struggle was beyond like everything I've ever needed. It was the most amazing feeling that me and my wife could have, because truly, Zach, the NFL world, they pushed Dalton Risner out. Dalton Risner might even be done playing football. He started 4 years in Denver, but he's awful, and he's not going to be on a team, and his career's over, and everything's going on with my family, and my family feels like it's breaking, and I'm worried about mom and trying to get her right, and I'm praying to God. But the comfort in the struggle was just beautiful, and it was amazing for me and my wife, and we needed it, and it was the only thing that we clung to, and we had to cling to it for 7 to 8 months. I mean, we had to cling to it through all the times. I mean, we were trying to sell our house, and NBC is picking it up and talking about ex-Denver Broncos selling his house, and people find our address, and so many texts and questions from multiple different people. And man, just a really humiliating time, and a time where God showed me, okay, where does your identity lie, Dalton? You speak to churches. You speak to people, thousands of people, and you say your identity is in me. You tell Zach on the podcast that I am your number one role, and you seek me first every day. Am I enough? Is it okay just to be a son of God? Is that okay? Or do you need more? Or do you need to be Dalton, the NFL player? Do you need to be Dalton that people say is so good at football? And man, there was just everything was stripped away. And I'm so glad that my wife wasn't part of that. But there's a chapter, a book in the Bible, and it's Job. I've never read Job before, but in the 7 months that I went through, I was really encouraged by multiple people to read Job. And I don't know if God made a bet with the devil like it happened in Job. I sure hope he didn't, but I felt like he did. And I felt like God said, there's no way Dalton will rebuke me. Dalton and Whitney will not rebuke me. I think the devil said, yeah, they will, because they care too much about what people think. They care too much. As soon as I take football away from them, and then when I take away the family aspect, Dalton's going to crumble. That man of God that speaks to millions of people on Sundays and has tattoos covered across his arms of books of the Bible, he will crumble. And I'm tired of him because he's killing me down here on earth, because I don't want people to talk about Jesus. And you know what? In Job, it talks about how there was so much taken from Job. And he asked a lot of questions. And Job wasn't perfect, because, Zach, I asked a lot of questions. And I read a lot. And I was angry a lot of days. But one thing that me and my wife never did, ever, is we never gave up the faith. When we were down bad and we felt forgotten and we felt thrown away, we held on to the promises that God makes us. We held on to the fact that we knew we were worthy, we were loved, and we were enough. And even though this thing of football that I've been working for since I can remember playing football in the backyard and dreaming about being this, when I told my dad when I was in 6th grade I wanted to be in the NFL, even when that was stripped away from me, and the dad and mom that raised me and believed in me, I felt like they were as well, we just kept the faith. So I get very, very passionate about it. I love talking about it, man, just because God is so real. God is so intentional, and he's so loving. And I felt like I was facing away from him, and I was talking about how hard it was for so long. But after a while, when God got through to me, and there were some crazy things that happened, and we could be on here all day, but at the end of the day, what I'll end with is the fact that God showed my wife and I that even though it wasn't our way and it wasn't in our time, God works all things for good. God has a plan for our future and a hope for our future, and he takes care of us, but it's not going to be in our worldly ways. It wasn't in the contract I went to Minnesota for. It was not the contract that I wanted. But the man I am today, the way I saw my wife grow closer to Jesus, the testimony I formed and that she formed and that we formed together, man, you know what? From now on in my life, bro, I don't want it to be my way. I want it to be God's way, because I don't even know what I would be like if I got the contract I wanted. All I can tell you is I promise I'm proud of the man I am today and the marriage that I have because of what we went through. I know that's a lot, bro.
Dude, thank you so much just for your vulnerability, Dalton. I'm reminded of that prayer, right? You know what? I'm not praying for my will to be done, but thy will to be done, because I'm confident that God will do all things, right? And he will work together for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. I love that word that you left us with today. There is comfort in the midst of your struggle. How have you seen God's fingerprints in and throughout your entire journey?
Oh, man. I've seen God's got his hands all over my life, as he does everyone's life, all of his sons and daughters' lives. But for me, I knew Jesus at an early age. My parents did such a great job of introducing to me to who Jesus Christ was. And my mom, she was just amazing in terms of teaching us boys what truly mattered. She always said, I don't care what you accomplish sports-wise, but if you're good to people, and you love others as Jesus loves you, and you forgive others as Jesus forgives you, that's what matters to me, is what my mom always told us. And that was just amazing for us, man. And that taught us so much in terms of how we wanted to treat people at an early age. And a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people don't get to find out who Jesus is right away in their lives, and have parents that really replicate that and show us with the way that they treated each other, the way that they treated people. And my dad cared a lot about our hard work ethic and a lot about our grades. We couldn't have anything but a 4.0 GPA. So if you had anything but a 4.0 GPA, there's 5 boys in my family. Me and the 3 older brothers all had a 4.0 because dad was just so stinking strict. The youngest one, he's crazy. He didn't do it. But mom, we were scared of mom on parent-teacher conference day just because of the way that she expected us to treat people. The reason I mention all of that is because I have to give so much credit to them, of them showing me and teaching me who Jesus was and what it looks like to follow Jesus. So at a very early age. So from the beginning, I was seeking Jesus, and I accepted Jesus into my heart. And I said, be a part of what I'm doing. But as we all know, at least for me, I didn't get to know Jesus for a while. I didn't know what it looked like to really seek him and open up the Bible and read these verses and see how Jesus is speaking to me, and the red letters that he left behind for us to read, and the testimonials, the gospels, the good news. And I just get so excited about it, because as I grow in my faith, I look at 4 years ago, if I did this with you, I would have told you I'm on fire. I don't know how I could be more on fire, but I look at you 4 years later, and I tell you right now, I don't know how I could be more on fire for Jesus. I love Jesus. I want to know more. I have so much to learn, and I can be so much better. So I know in 5 years from now, I'm going to say the exact same thing. I'm going to look at myself now and say, oh, buddy, you have so much to learn. So God has been everywhere. God has taught me so much about myself, taught me about who I want to be, how I want to live my life, the husband I want to be, how I want to utilize the platform with football that I have, how I want to impact other people's lives, how I don't want to just keep this good news to me, but I want to spread it to other people. I have so many different testimonies of God working in my life. Yesterday, on day one, I mentioned the comfort and the struggle that he gave me and my wife in this last period of life between the free agency period. But I feel like no matter what we go through, God always finds a way to be there, and he is always there. And I have a verse on my arm. It's not really a verse. It's more of a saying, but it says, seek the Lord in good times, seek the Lord in bad times, for he'll always be watching over you. And that's one thing that I've tried to do better is like, I'm not going to just seek him whenever I need something. I'm not going to just seek him when I'm down bad and I feel forgotten and I need him or whatever it is. I want to seek him when things are good too. I want to seek the Lord every single day because he goes nowhere. His hand is outreached to everyone listening right now. His hand is like this. It's out and it says, just reach your hand out too. Just give me a little bit of help. Open up your heart to me. Be a little bit vulnerable. Let me take over your life. And I think one thing, Zach, that everybody thinks, not everybody, but a lot of people think about Jesus Christ is that they have to be perfect. They have to put on a suit and tie. They have to clean up their life to look Jesus in the eye or open up their heart and say, welcome in. Are you kidding me? There's not one Christian man or woman down here on earth that doesn't sin, that doesn't fall short. Every single person does. So it's almost like when people say, the time's got to be right to get married, and everyone tells them, well, it's never going to be right. You just got to do it. Or it's never going to be right to have kids. You just got to have kids. If you're waiting to be perfect to follow Jesus or let him into your heart, don't do that because you're never going to be perfect. Even the best of the best, the men that speak about Jesus, the pastors out there that travel the world, third world countries, preach on Sundays, they don't even have it all figured out. We're all learning. There's a reason there's sin in this world. So yeah, God's footprint, man, it's all over the life. It's all over my life and my journey.
He is in all of the intricate details of our lives, the mountaintop moments, the valleys. Like you said, Jesus goes where he is invited. We can't wait until things are perfect because, like you said, things will never be perfect. I kind of view God as the incredible and the great surgeon, the one who gets into the messiest parts of our lives. But then what he can do is he can revamp something beautiful. He can renew something incredible. He can repurpose pain into something good. That's who our God is. He's just, he's good, he's faithful, he is amazing in everywhere. And like you, the more I dive into his word, the more I get to know him and build my relationship with him, I'm able to marvel and delight in the new discoveries that we see day in and day out. But Dalton, something I do know that I'd be interested in diving in with you is, in the world of sports, sometimes, especially in a locker room setting, they can be places where our faith isn't always accepted or valued. However, something we were chatting about before we even pressed record was that at the Minnesota Vikings, I know a dear friend of ours here at Ignite Men's Impact Weekend, Kirk Cousins, we've had him come and share a couple of times, is that he's also a brother in the faith. How important is it to have these brothers, but also how do you step up and stand up for Christ and live out your faith in maybe a secular world and culture?
Yeah, well, it's very tough, but it's very rewarding at the same time. I'd say it's tough because, it's not, I mean, you look at like some of CJ Stroud's stuff from this year and some of the
Yeah.
news outlets that interviewed him would like cut out when he was talking about Jesus. It's not always the main topic of discussion is Jesus Christ. It almost never is in the NFL. It's not something that people want to put out there, whether it be on social media or the news. But I will tell you that within locker rooms, I think it's much stronger. And I think you see coaches do that. You see Harbaugh with the Ravens. I thought that
Yep.
was so awesome this year when he kept reciting verses, not only when he lost, but when he won. So Harbaugh, if you're out there and you hear this, man, big shout out to you. I thought that was awesome. I love hearing men of God not be scared to talk about Jesus. And that brings me into what I'm going to say now. I will talk about Jesus in any NFL locker room wherever I go this next year. Let me say it again. If there's a team out there that doesn't want me to talk about Jesus, I want you to hear this because I will talk about Jesus. And if you don't want to give me a job because of it, please don't give me a job. I do not want to be on your football team because
Right.
Jesus Christ comes above football at any point, man. And you run into guys like Kirk Cousins. When I got to Minnesota, they do a Bible study on Wednesday mornings. They do chapels on Saturday nights. It's always a group of guys that you want to be around that love Jesus, that find a way to come in the morning or be there on Saturday night before a big game and give praise to Jesus and want to talk about Jesus. And before the game, man, I mean, we pray as a group. for anyone that wants to pray together, which that group in Minnesota was anywhere from 20 to 30 people. Awesome group. And then the whole team gets on a knee in the locker room, the whole entire team and staff in that locker room, coaches included, and says the Lord's Prayer. So it is an industry. I will admit that talking about Jesus isn't the most popular thing, but within the locker room, I would say it's much stronger than what the news or what social media shows because of men like Kirk Cousins, because of men like CJ Ham, because of chaplains like Reza Zeta in Denver whenever I was there, or Sochi at Chum in Minnesota. There's so many people that love Jesus that want to bring it through the locker room. I've always believed that the locker room is our mission field. Let me tell you a story, Zach, and this is one of my fifth year in the NFL was my favorite year for these reasons. I started doing this my last year in Denver, and it's like after the hard day every week, which is usually a Thursday, maybe a Wednesday, I would kind of just announce as soon as the team broke down, very nonchalantly, if anyone would like to pray, I'm going to take a knee and pray. And in Denver, my group started with 2 or 3, and it ended with like 6 or 7, maybe 8, and it was awesome, and it was like once a week where I'd pray for the guys, and it was a lot of guys that you wouldn't see Wednesday morning or Saturday night. And I started doing the same thing in Minnesota. And after the first day, there was like one person. I mean, no one even knew me. I got there late. I wasn't even in camp. I mean, it was tough. After Kirk Cousins got hurt, man, it made me feel so great. I didn't even announce to anyone that, I want to talk about Jesus or I love Jesus. I think that guys on the team just noticed. And Kirk usually was the one that led the prayer before game days. And he was also the one that started the Lord's Prayer. And guys on that Minnesota team, I've been there for 3 weeks. As soon as Kirk got hurt, they came up to me and they said, will you lead the prayer for the team? And not only lead the prayer, but then they said, hey, will you also start the Lord's Prayer? And I remember CJ Ham, he's a veteran fullback on the Minnesota Vikings, and he looked at me, he was the main one that asked. That just meant the world to me. So going back to the prayer that I did, it started with 1 or 2. It was one of the last prayers of the year, bro. It was in December. And I closed my eyes, and there was 4 or 5 people. And I never cared about the number. I wanted there to be more, but I just wanted to pray for guys. I closed my eyes, holding 2 or 3 hands, and I opened my eyes, bro, and there was like 16 people around me. And it was just really cool because it was one of those things where I never forced it all year. I never asked anyone to join. I just said anyone that wants to, open table, like, please feel free. And it was so cool to open my eyes my last week in Minnesota and see 16 guys with their hands on each other around me. And not, as you know, not because of me. That wasn't me, dude. It's not Dalton Risner. There's a lot of people out there that love Jesus and want to pray and talk about it. To see what Jesus Christ was doing was unbelievable. So there was a reason I was there. There was a reason I went through that 7-month period. There's a reason all that happened. But that's kind of a little look into Jesus inside the locker room, or what I call the mission field, man.
And man, I think it's important to get those glimpses of what it actually looks like inside of locker rooms because, like you said, media, they can sometimes skew that. They can pull that away from it. They don't want people to see the intricacies of what's really going on inside. And to hear that is so encouraging to my heart, to hear the leaders that there are, such as you in the NFL, playing at the highest level, being able to point people and pray in Jesus' name, right? And people coming alongside. I'm so grateful for you, my friend, because I believe you live with an unashamed faith. That is what my prayer is every day, that I could live with, that we could all live with, to point people back to Christ. Something that I know, though, that can be difficult for all of us is we always sometimes find our identities wrapped in what we do. You see that a lot in athletes, but I've seen and I've heard you share in a post-game interview, all glory goes to God. I wouldn't be here living this life if my hero hadn't come and saved me. He rose up and conquered death and sin, and because of that, I am now free. Dalton, how has this relationship with God allowed you to play with freedom on the field, but more importantly, live in freedom off the field?
Man, it's such a great question. And it makes me get emotional, man, just because I remember being at my wedding with my wife, and I was preparing a speech, and I said, I'm trying to think of the exact example of true love. And I'm trying to think of 2 people. And I'm just like, what is true love, right? What does true love look like? And true love is exactly what you just said. It's what Jesus did for us. It's what God sent his son to do for us. We know you're going to wrong us. We know you're going to sin. We know you're going to be imperfect. But we want to save you.
I want to send my son, and he is going to die, not a simple death, not an easy death. I mean, he is going to be crucified, the most awful way to die, and be spit on and be mocked by these people that he is truly saving. And I mean, while he's getting crucified, the men that are spitting on him, he's saying, forgive them, for they don't even know what they're doing or what they've done. I mean, it's just, that is true love. That is true love. So when I hear that phrase that you said, that I repeated about my hero saving me and conquering sin and conquering the world and freeing me so I can live freely, that's how I want to live my life. I want to make sure that there is power in the resurrection. There is power in the crucifixion. There is power in being a follower of Jesus Christ, and that needs to mean something. It's not just Jesus died on the cross for our sins, so I should feel guilty my whole life, and I'm not worthy and I'm not enough. No, you know what? I want to make it mean something, because it does. What he did on the cross was the most powerful, biggest thing that's ever happened in the history of anything, and it always will be. Nothing will ever beat it. Maybe, I guess, when Jesus comes back, I might think that's pretty stinking cool. But, I mean, what he did for us was so that we could live free. That they didn't do that for us so that we could live in chains our whole life and say that we're not enough and we're not going to go to heaven and we can't and we're imperfect. He did that to free us. It wasn't to free us so that we can live a life that doesn't correspond with Jesus and not do all the right things. That's not why. He freed us so that we can do our best every single day and know that he already conquered this. He already conquered it. We're already saved. We got a whole nother shot at this thing. We believe in Jesus. We accept him into our heart. Guess what? There's eternal life waiting for us at the end of this. And when it comes to a silly game of football, are you kidding me, man? I'm not going to play a game of football and get up there and puff my chest out and act like I did it. You're crazy. I told Whitney, we went through a 7-month free agency process where I thought I might be done playing in the NFL. I thought that dream that I started in 6th grade was over. And you know what? If it was, no big deal. I mean, what a heck of a ride, right? But it wasn't. And the very first play, my very first game, guess what? Who did I start against? Probably the best defense in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers. And on top of it, I have a guy named Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave, if anyone doesn't know him, I mean, go look up his contract and his accolades. This dude is a beast. And it's the very first play, and I got him breathing down my neck. I'm like, how come I couldn't have, started against, someone a little bit worse? I mean, come on. How do I get the 49ers? Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa is right here. Eric Armstead's right here. Fred Warner, that guy's Wagner, I think his name is. He's the linebacker waiting right there. And I long arm Javon Hargrave. It's a great clip, man. I get done with the game. I told Whitney, I said, I blacked out. Jesus literally made that block for me. He literally grabbed onto that guy and showed him 20 yards. I'm sure that didn't happen, but I like joking around about it because that's where the forefront is, man. It's not about football. You got to give all the glory to him because what he did is amazing, and it made it so where we can live free every day and spread this to as many people as we can and let them know that they're also loved and worthy and enough.
Amen, my man. What I always say is that God didn't come to free us from the fight. God came to free us for the fight. And what you're saying is continually use, that freedom to share the good news because it is so meaningful. It is so important. Like you said, there is power in the crucifixion, but especially there is power in the resurrection. We are blessed that we get to serve a God who is alive and who is fully well today like he was way back then. So, Dalton, I appreciate, again, all that you're doing. And on top of that, with your faith, you've used it to create some powerful, in a sense, resources for all of us to really be a part of. One of them is the Risner Up Foundation, whose purpose is to positively impact others through love and kindness. Even though you're a highly decorated player, what you do off the field has been meaningful to tons of people around the country. On top of that, though, you have a book that you wrote and it has a lot of illustrations in it, a lot of scripture, and it's titled Rise Up. Could you just share with our listeners a little bit more about both of those resources?
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for mentioning those. They mean a lot to me. One thing I've always believed, and this corresponds with believing in Jesus Christ, and I've mentioned it several times. Don't get me wrong. I love football. Don't get me wrong. Football gives me a platform, and I think God wants me in the NFL and wants me on an NFL team. But the legacy that I want to leave off the field, dude, if you talk to my kids in 10 years and you mentioned how decorated I was as a football, cool. Why does it matter, man? It's
right.
Those awards you mentioned are collecting dust. I think they're in storage. No one cares. It doesn't matter. I mean, maybe some people do, but I really don't care. I don't care if you even talk about if I'm wearing a gold jacket someday. Don't get me wrong, it's cool, but like the legacy I want to leave off the field is so much more important to me. I want people to talk about my heart. I want people to talk about how I did my best to just live a life like Jesus Christ. And through my foundation, through the book that I wrote with Rise Up, my whole goal through all of that is to positively impact people's lives. I mean, I come from a family that needed help. I come from a family that would have loved to be able to have help from an NFL player's nonprofit to help with groceries or to help with building a new home or whatever it may be. So I always promised myself, I said, not if, but when I make it, because that's the type of guy I was. When I make it, I'm going to use my platform to do good. I'm going to be the guy that stops to sign the autograph. I'm going to be the guy that talks about Jesus. I'm going to be the guy that believes it's important to be a role model. I'm going to be the guy that before I think it's cool to go out and party or drink or do whatever it is, to think about what kids are watching me and think about the type of man of Jesus that I want to be portrayed as. And that's what I try to do every single day, man. Not just with how I carry myself, but what I do for other people. It's not write a check and take a picture and leave. What I take a pride in is my time. I want to spend time with people. I want to give time through my foundation to impact whether it's kids, families, or organizations. Show them that you can be in the spotlight. You can have quote unquote fame and fortune, and you can be a good person that loves Jesus Christ. You can be someone that can give back. You can be somebody that can take time out for other people. Someone that's not just one-way lane, selfish for themselves. And that's one of my goals every single day. My wife keeps me on track with that. That's something that we both try to do, and we take a lot of pride in. So if anyone's listening, the Rising Up Foundation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we try to do a good job of posting what we're up to. You can stay up to date. You can check us out at riserup.org. Email us, the whole deal, and you guys can stay in touch with what we're doing.
Man, Dalton, it's amazing to hear all the incredible things that you're doing off the field because, like you said, all the accolades, they'll just collect dust at the end of the day, right? But who you love and who loved you are the most important things that we have in this life. For you, as you've continually grown in your faith, we talked a lot about that. We've touched on now the foundation. Now, I'm just interested for a second as we kind of wrap up our time, the future, next steps for Dalton Risner. I've heard it said that you want to be an evangelist after football, and now I know why. But what are you most immediately focused on? What are you and Whitney most excited about? And how can we really be praying for Dalton Risner on the road forward?
Oh, man. Jeremy Camp says it best, and he says, keep me in the moment. And if no one knows what I'm talking about, you got to go listen to the song. But I think that's the one prayer I want prayed for me and my wife, and that's one thing we learned from last year. We're looking towards the future so much, and I think this is a word of encouragement to anyone else listening out there as well. Life is short. Like, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. Like, let's quit worrying about next year or that next paycheck or that next job or that next vacation or whatever it may be, and let's just stay in the moment. Like Jeremy Camp says, keep me in the moment, for I don't want to miss what you have for me. Like, I don't want to miss what God has for me. Like, I went through one of the hardest times of my life through family and football last year, and I am so glad I went through it. So what's the worst that can happen? If God is in control of my life, which God is in control, I have given my life to Jesus, there is nothing that can happen that scares me. There's nothing that can happen that scares me. So I want to stay in the moment. I don't want to worry about free agency in a month. I don't want to worry about where I'll be playing football. I want to just stay in the moment. So if there's one prayer, I ask to keep me and my wife in the moment. Me and Whitney, even though we are staying in the moment, there's so much to be excited for. I think right now we're really excited for the chance to just kind of know where we're going to be. This last 12 months, we never really knew where we were going to live. And then finishing up in Minnesota, coming back here, we don't know where we're going to be in another 2 or 3 months, or maybe we have to wait till September again. We don't really have any idea. So we're really seeking some stability in terms of we want to just know where home is. We'd love to start talking about kids and children and bringing, more sons and daughters of the true King into this world, which we know that we need. So there's a lot that we're looking forward to, but at the same time, trying to stay in the moment.
My friend, we will be praying with and for you guys as God would keep you in the moment, that he would comfort you, that he'd walk alongside of you, and that he would lead, God, and direct your steps every step of the way. Dalton Risner, man, you are truly a blessing, my friend. My encouragement to you, keep inspiring others with the way that you live, you lead, and you love. And keep just being a reflection of his light, because you are a light in a dark world, and that a dark world needs, my friend. We appreciate you, Dalton. We'll be cheering you on every step of the way, on and off the gridiron. Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us over the last couple of days, my friend.
Thanks, guys. God bless.